Welcome to the DRC meeting for Shops at Sumner Place Apartments. I am Christina Sorrento. I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The purpose of this meeting is for you to ask any questions based upon the comments that you received last week. Your lead reviewer is Katie Macarini, and I will turn it over to her now to kind of highlight any of the major issues we should talk about, and then goes to the applicant. So go ahead, Katie.
Sure. So as you mentioned, we have a preliminary plan amendment, a site plan, and a forest conservation plan associated with this project. It's located in the southwest Greater Bethesda area at the corner of Sangamore Road and Sentinel Drive. We have a few things that we wanted to just cover briefly to make sure that you're aware. First, some items we're missing that we need for the subsequent submission. So that includes truck turning templates, garage plans, open space exhibit, recreation exhibit, shared parking exhibit, street cross sections, frontage along the side of the proposed building and the public roads, MPDU unit locations, and a noise analysis. As Matt and I have discussed previously, we are looking for frontage improvements on Sentinel Drive, the entire length of the frontage. That includes a 6-foot sidewalk and a 6-foot street buffer. We'll be looking for feasibility on Sangamore Road, so demonstrating that with your cross sections, with a note that's either to be installed at the time of redevelopment or by others. We just thought that that was a little more proportional with the project that you're doing. Staff does have concerns about the quality of open space that's being provided. We see that you're exceeding the minimum, but we have some concerns about meeting the intent of the code, so we can work with you on that. And then we also have some concerns about plantings, which were previously fulfilled requirements of the forest conservation plan, site plan, appear to be either missing, dead, or dying. So we would like you to address that in the resubmission. We also had some suggestions for improving the streetscape and circulation around the proposed building. That includes the lay-by discussion, garage access, loading, and that'll be further explored with the truck turning templates that you provide. See if there's anything else. I think those are the big ones before we get to schedule. So I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
I'm Matt Gordon on behalf of the applicant from Selzer Gervich. I think you covered most of the issues that we identified as well. I think we just there was one really minor clarification that I forgot to ask you about yesterday, Katie.
Sure.
There was I think it had to do with the recreational, which you didn't, we need to provide the calculations, but there was something about 1,200 square feet near like a main entrance, and we were confused what
I think that claiming recreation space for like a lobby that's programmed, and I think there's a minimum requirement, so you just need to, on your recreation exhibit, show that you actually have the minimum requirement and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, and then on the frontages, so we talked about Sentinel. So we're going to coordinate internally and look at the street section along our frontage. For Sangamore, we have conflicts with like the existing improvements, utilities, et cetera. So I don't think we can dedicate, but what we can do is provide the sections on like what it would look like in the future and have a condition like we've done on other projects where there's existing improvements and you're not modifying those, where it's in the future. So we can address it that way, but I'll talk to Brenda and Rebecca about it as well. And then for the parking lot, we're obviously modifying the back portion of it. And we're going to add, some sidewalks and things going towards the CVS where we're taking out parking spaces for the open space. So we're going to study sort of like a phasing plan for the parking lot that's allowed by the zoning ordinance. And we'll send you a plan that shows like what we can do and then things that would be longer term, similar to the frontage improvements. Because it's such a large property that it would be very challenging to like update the whole parking lot.
Sure. And you're talking about that for like the landscaping requirements and the canopy coverage.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll look at that as well. And then on the drive aisles, and we're going to study all of that, like the parking, on-street parking with short-term signage so that it could function for the FedEx, the UPS truck drivers, because we understand the community desires for there to be a space there because they have concerns. So we want to, I guess, sort of marry the design comments with the functional goal of ensuring that there's a space for trucks to pull in too. Yeah. So we're going to study that and get back to you. I think those were, and then the 2 letters that we received 2 letters from the community, and we've been in contact with them for, I guess, since April when we had our pre-submission community meeting. So we will respond to those. I think we're generally addressing all of those comments. We just need to get back to them, but we'll provide copies of that to you as well.
Yeah, if you're in your next submission, if you have comment responses, just like different from ePlans since we now have a different functionality, but you know what I mean? Like your old school style. That'd be
Okay.
great. Yeah, thanks for keeping
And-
us in the loop.
Yeah, and then Chanda, is there anything like on the technical end of the forest conservation or otherwise that you need clarification on?
I don't think so. I'll probably try to set up an area just to go over some things. Oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, just the existing state of the easement that's there, I know was a big concern, so.
And also, you might not be, you might not have to be compliant on the variance, but there are large trees in the property right next to it, so you may have to kind of like protect them, kind of like get us some certified arborists, just to make sure that when you're digging, you don't damage or.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns that the community
Okay,
adjacent has had, so we're working closely
Okay.
with them.
good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And by setting the building back, I think like 45 feet or so at a minimum from that property line, I think we're comfortable that there won't be off-site impacts, but we'll address that as part of the forest conservation plan. And then in terms of schedule.
Yeah. So technically 120 days takes you to March 28th, but we have some staff limited availability on that Thursday. So we're bumping it up a week and that bumps up everything a week. So working backwards, so we have a board date of March 21st. Agency letters will be due February 5th. Your final submittal is due January 15th. And your first resubmittal is due January 3rd. If that's tight, we can always work with you on extensions and things of that nature. I know it sounds like far away, but when you start looking at next resubmittal being January 3rd and the holidays.
Yeah, my guess is since we do have like the exhibits that you mentioned that are missing.
Yeah.
And we have internal coordination, and then we want to meet with Katie and your team as well as Rebecca on some of the transportation improvements.
Mhm.
We're probably going to be at, submitting like a 30-day planning director
That's fine.
extension to push this into, I guess, April.
Mhm.
So that we have enough time to work through all these issues with the holidays.
Yeah, we'd rather get them resolved before it goes to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're not going to be able to meet that schedule just because of the,
Oh, yeah. No,
So-
that's what happens to everybody if you have the last ERC of the season. Yep.
usually I'd be saying, can we move it up? But we've got a lot of design issues to coordinate, and so we'll work something out with you that like makes sense, and then schedule some meetings for like the first half of January, once we have exhibits and things to work through some of these design issues.
Sure. And I'll nag you if I need to.
And then I guess I'll talk to Rebecca offline about
You guys
we
can
still-
be into that conversation. Just, even if I'm just there.
Well, we have a lot of time left. If you
Yeah, why don't we-
about anything.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is an 8-minute meeting at this point.
Yeah. Rebecca, so the one like DOT comment, there's a couple comments, but the main one was, so this site, like if you look at the plan that's up there, that where the proposed multifamily building up to 118 units is a surface parking lot that's heavily underutilized, like no one parks there. And they would infill the building there, and there's some parking below grade. And then to the right of it on the plan view, they would be adding like a pocket park, plaza space. There's some sidewalks, but otherwise the rest of the site that includes a number of commercial uses and surface parking as well as structured parking is not really being changed. And so on Sangamore Road, there's two frontages where we're not really doing anything. We have existing improvements and there's utilities and other conflicts. So we can't dedicate, but I think it's 5 feet. But what we would propose to do if DOT is comfortable with it, and we've done this on other projects, is just have a condition that covenants that we will dedicate in the future, and we'll show the section that says, this is what it would look like, and it will be when there's redevelopment of this site, if it occurs in the future. There's no plans to do that right now.
Yeah.
But
There's a CIP project.
Along those frontages, or like if other properties on the other side redevelop.
Yeah, or an LATR kind of thing, or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we would handle it, because we're,
Fine.
okay. That was the main.
It's really, you guys deal with the right of way with, so.
Yeah, and I think I want to point out, I mean, I think this was in the comments, but since we have time, Rebecca was really keen on the fact that we want to keep the existing curb placement where it is. So we just need to make sure that everything fits within the master plan right of way. If there's additional right of way, then we can work with easements. But like you said, if we can't fit it within, because I know they're like, you guys are 5 feet short of the master plan right away from the
Yeah.
center line. If it can't fit within that, then yes, the future dedication clause would work just fine for us.
Okay, so just show how it works with the existing curbs.
Yeah.
So you got that. And then, and because some of Sam's comments were related to that, with like improvements and encroachments and things of that nature. So if we're just addressing it in the future, then we're covered there. And then let me see, Rebecca, there was one comment, and this is like now that it's not really, it's the Transit Services Division or
Yes,
Sandy's division. And this is,
PM or,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, what are they called?
commuter
Air
services.
services, sorry. So this is the first project that I've seen because the council changed when they updated the law a few years ago and they got rid of the T-mags.
Yeah.
And they created these TDM plans, and we're not in like a transportation demand management district.
And I don't think you're required to do that.
Yeah, you're outside of a TMD. So
Well, but it's kind of ambiguous. So I
I
guess,
don't think it is for us.
yeah, touch base with Sandy, see what she said.
so we'd like to work something out because there's either it's not applicable, which this is not really a train. I mean, there's bus service, but it's not really a transit rich area compared to like Friendship Heights or Bethesda.
So my understanding is that if you're not in a TMD, then we can't require those agreements.
Okay, so we'll coordinate with him.
Jim Carlson?
He put the comments in saying to do like, there's levels, and he said he looked at the entire site with the square footages. So if we're exempt, then that's fine, but if we're not exempt, then I would think we would apply it just to what we're doing, this multifamily
Yeah,
building.
Brenda can coordinate. Brenda's the reviewer. She can coordinate with Jim. on it.
Okay,
Since we have like a little bit of time, did you see that we made some comments on your lighting plan? So the two things there is it would be really helpful to see lighting for the whole site, because again, the whole site's kind of coming under review. The big thing though is it looks like the type of light that you're choosing is actually exceeding the lighting across the site boundary. So there's either an issue where like it's showing it wrong, or maybe that's not the most appropriate light choice. But I know sometimes that gets overlooked, so
Yeah.
just touch base on that.
that's the architectural plan.
It's a photometrics plan.
Yeah,
But did you be prepared?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll update that.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm just going through.
the one thing related to transportation, with the complete streets, I know, the curb cuts, we always want them as small as they can be. And the existing curb cut that we're utilizing there is sized for the trucks that use the site.
So I would show a truck turning template.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because if we can tighten the curb radius, if we can choke it down at all, like even with maybe even mountable apron, I mean, like something where we can try to get this down as tight as possible, because we are going to be expecting a lot more pedestrian activity between the apartment building and, the shops and the offices. So.
I think what we're gonna study, and I think we may need it at the curb, but then if we can taper it down once you get on site.
Yeah.
And same thing with where the trucks will go in, sort
The
of
loading
towards
area.
where the CVS was.
Yeah.
Because as we started out, we had a separate curb cut for the loading that we got rid of, we eliminated. But now that creates challenges on the site, so we said the trucks need, I think we ran the templates, we should have included them. But we'll narrow it as feasible, but we need to make sure they work as well, because there's
Great.
trucks that are entering through that entrance primarily for like the existing uses.
Right. What's the design vehicle? Is it a WB50?
we've done quite a few different ones.
Yeah.
This is Mike Mikowski. It's going to be a 67 because of the grocer.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was going to say, I was like, I know we've gotten away with like shopping centers with smaller driveways, but okay. All right. So yeah, whatever design vehicle you expect to serve the site as a whole, and then also the specific loading area that you have for the apartments, I would include those. It's
Yeah,
better to have more than fewer.
so we can probably work with the one for the apartments and narrow that down, but I think the entrance is gonna need to stay the way it is because of the Safeway.
So when you were talking about studying the site, one other thing too, I don't know if I vocalized this clearly, so this is where this meeting's helpful. Perhaps to make more meaningful open space, it might make sense to figure out a way to bridge these together more closely. Whether it's making the access to the parking garage come over this way or do something different. But I would recommend looking at that because right now we have two that are on either side, and it might make sense to knit them together to make a more meaningful public amenity open space. So that's something that our designers brought up in some internal discussions.
Okay, and I know we're gonna look at those convenience parking spaces that we
Yeah.
left. And if we can do the on-street parking in front of the building with some short-term convenience
Exactly,
parking and
maybe you can-
replace them, then that would make it more meaningful.
Yeah.
But it may be challenging to put them together since we need to get the trucks in there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know there's a lot of competing circulation issues here.
Well, we've got a lot of work on our end, but that's all. That's all we have, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
We went through the schedule, so.
all right.
yeah, we'll probably just push everything by, or maybe less than 30 days, but we'll work with you.
Up to 30 days and then we can do,
Yeah,
and try and schedule things sooner.
okay.
Give you some wiggle room.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
All right. I'm the chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for Angie's Place Lots 1 and 2. Your lead reviewer is Troy Leftwich. The purpose of this meeting is to answer any questions that you have based upon the comments you received. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Go ahead, Troy.
The main comments for the concept plan, I think, is really the transition between the public road, T Rose Place, and the private designation that you're going to do for the right of way. I think that's going to dictate how the lots are configured. And that's kind of why we didn't put a lot of comments in what you were showing before, because the current transition that you have right now between T Rose Place and what you have inside the property line doesn't meet the public road standards. So I think based on your square footage on that you have allocated, you're right at the edge of being able to do 5 lots total, just off of the R200 zone. So figuring out that transition between the public road and whether it's a private road or a private driveway inside your lot will dictate the lot configuration, and then also the amount of lots that you are proposing. So I think that's where we need to start. But if there's other elements within our comments, we're happy to kind of address those. But just from our internal discussions, I think that's the biggest piece we need to kind of address first.
Okay, this is Steve Crum with MHG. We believe we've met the criteria for dedication and having lots with frontage on a public street. There would be one lot that doesn't have frontage on a public street, but the rest of them, the way we believe it could be configured, we believe we meet the requirements. I guess I'm trying to understand the comment as to, T Rose Place is an existing stub street. And one of the comments was provide a 60-foot right of way. Existing T Rose is nowhere close to a 60-foot right of way. Not sure why we would need to provide a 60-foot right of way interior to our site. And quite honestly, if we were required to provide a 60-foot right of way, I don't know that the applicant's going to proceed with this application. Not that that's a problem for you guys. A little bit of background is that the applicant has 4 siblings. She wants to provide an opportunity for them to each obtain a lot in their own name, and then appreciate the equity of lot ownership. She doesn't want to tear down the dwelling that she currently lives in. She is willing to remove the other dwelling that's on the property, but so there are certainly a lot of constraints to make this work. But that's just a little bit of the background. So, what we're proposing is to extend a public right-of-way and then construct within that public right-of-way and within the remaining lot areas what would appear to be a public street, even though it would only be maintained up to a certain point as a public street, and the rest of it would be private driveway, although it would look like a public street with a cul-de-sac. Does that conceptually, does that not work?
I think, we'll definitely defer to DOT, but just, in regards of just the existing T Rose Place Road, it doesn't meet the current public road standards. So it's typical with any new development, we create a new road that we provide a new public road standard, regardless of what the current road standard that exists today. So this is just the cross section that's being required wouldn't be as typical for any other project, regardless of like the scope of this particular project. I understand what you're trying to do, but it's just standards that we apply to all developments, and so that it has to be like an adequate transition between the two properties. And like I said, understand how you're designing it. Like I said, it's just for us to be able to take the subdivision to the board and approve it. There's just certain standards that what you're currently showing we couldn't support. If that makes sense. But I'll just defer to DOT in regards of, the cross section that they're asking for.
Hi, this is Billy Whalen with DOT.
Hey.
We want a 60-foot right of way. Also, we just can't have the road stop public and then transition to private. So you could have the cul-de-sac where you're proposing to end the public, but we can't have the road go from public to private arbitrarily.
Okay, so minimum 60-foot right of way. Anything less than that's a non-starter.
This is Rebecca from DOT. Marie, do you have any comments, or did you have any comment for them?
I mean, I submitted them.
Yeah, we read Marie's comments.
Do they meet your requirements, Marie?
For the most part, yes. I mean, there were some things I needed some more information on, but the basic layout of the size of the cul-de-sac, the size of the street, it appeared to meet what I required.
Okay, so for DOT, we require a proper turnaround at the end of our cul-de-sac. That's per code requirement. So you'd have to provide a cul-de-sac at the end of the area. And then you would have to meet Marie's requirement. So Marie, if they move up the cul-de-sac and then they have 4 lots on a driveway, they would have to meet, it would still have to be a 20-foot pavement section, correct, until they break off the driveways?
They could do 4 separate driveways off the cul-de-sac. They could do a shared driveway no more than 150 feet in length, or they could do longer than 150 feet with a compliant T turnaround. So that would be a 140-foot long top T section. So they have some options there if they wanted to shove the cul-de-sac back toward the front of the property.
So, and this is for the engineer, are you considering an open section or a closed section roadway?
Closed section.
Okay. So you would need to provide a cross section showing us that you can work within the right of way with less than 60. However, we will not accept a 20. The lowest we can go is maybe a 50-foot right of way. And you need to show everything that can fit within that right of way. You also need to make sure you meet stormwater management for the road for whatever standards that DPS requires.
We're aware that we need to meet ESD.
Right, but
We needed to have this discussion about where the right of way ends, where the public roads, where the private drives begin, before we can design how we're going to address stormwater. So we looked at putting the cul-de-sac right at the end of existing T rows, and I don't think it fits there.
But we will require a cul-de-sac, a proper turnaround and that requires a cul-de-sac.
Okay, I mean, you don't have one now.
Right, but that we don't build to 1967 standards. We build to 2023 standards, and that doesn't meet our standard.
Okay. All right. We'll go back and look at it again, but I don't think all that's going to fit. So, maybe the rest of the comments are moot in that this application is not going to be able to move forward and meet your current requirements.
You have
Hey,
any other?
Steve, it's Mark Etheridge with DPS.
Hey, Mark.
I know that you proposed pervious paving for the private part of the driveway. That if we went that direction, we'd have to have some discussions about that amongst the group as well. I think there's some concerns there with
Sure.
long-term maintenance and efficacy, and large vehicles turning in that radius down there for trash trucks and delivery vehicles, probably going to be very detrimental to the use of pervious paving there if the soils work. But I just want to throw it out that that's been proposed, and we would have to have some discussions on whether or not that's really going to be workable.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
If I could jump in real quick, I apologize. I missed this from the interagency discussion. I cannot accept pervious pavement as fire department access. Our apparatus just does too much damage to it. So bear that in mind as well. If you propose that as fire department access, it cannot be pervious pavement or pervious subgrade.
You guys need lighter trucks.
I'll tell that to our fire chief.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, we read through the comments. I mean, I think the major issues were minimum 60-foot right of way, where the turnaround had to occur. And we'll just have to go back to our client and discuss options with her, and that this just simply may not be a viable project.
We will consider a lesser right of way. However, you need to provide a justification and show that
Sure.
it can fit within everything can fit within the right of way.
Okay. I mean,
It's not going to go down to much less than, I would say our oldest standard was 44 feet. So you can look at the old design standards.
Sure.
See, but you still have to meet stormwater management requirements. So
Understood. We were trying to achieve this lady's goals of, providing for her family, and we didn't promise her a rose garden or even a tea rose garden. So I think we just have to have a frank discussion with her that, the development standards have moved on, and this just simply may not be something that's viable. Okay. I think, we read through all the comments, and the major ones were, we understood we were pushing the envelope pretty hard with respect to the public right of way and turnarounds and fire access. And we're limited to how much lot area we have and how much we're able to give away. So.
I have a question. So for the proposal you have, do you show the cul-de-sac within the property lines, or is the cul-de-sac, because the cul-de-sac, even if it's a private road, it still needs to be in its own parcel?
Yeah, it was not intended to be a private road. It was meant to be a private driveway. It is within the lots. The idea was, physically looking at it on the ground, it would look like a public road with turnaround, access, fire access, curb and gutter, sidewalks, but for the most part, it was going to be privately maintained and was on private lots. We're again, trying to be pretty creative here.
I don't think we've seen a private drive in that level of configuration or the subdivision that had kind of a
Public road feel.
Yeah. Like I said, we understood what you were trying to do. And, that's why we didn't kind of go, through our standards and stuff that, we didn't agree with and things like that. I think we mentioned a couple of things, but yeah, like I said, we understood where you was at, the square footage that you were dealing with and how you were trying to make it, feel and look just like the rest of the subdivision. From a physical design standpoint, it's just, like I said, the standards, the current new standards just doesn't necessarily, support it. But not to say that, not to say that we haven't seen a driveway with a cul-de-sac. Just, folks aren't doing cul-de-sacs for driveway because they don't want to maintain them privately, and they would rather have a larger lot, and you just don't see, subdivisions
Yep.
with it. So
Un-
I say it can be
Understood.
done. Yeah, not to say it can be done, just we haven't necessarily seen it in that
Okay.
scenario. But like I said, I don't think that was like the biggest issue. Is like I said, is the transition between the public.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you know, the big deal is she wants to keep the existing house that she lives in. And
Yeah.
then where it's located on the property, it just makes it very difficult to try to provide that public turnaround that far down the, that far down the driveway to, make it feasible. If she was willing to demolish all the structures, then, then we have a different plotting arrangement, but that wasn't something she was willing to do. So
Yeah.
we need to have a discussion with our client, and we appreciate everybody's comments. Very thoughtful. Thank you very much. And we'll see whether this turns into something or just becomes another exercise.
Okay.
This is Dave Post. I'm a landscape architect at MHG. And I had a question about one of the questions or comments about connecting to Watershed Court, which is the driveway or the road that's kind of on the south end of this, that's in a private right-of-way easement. And there's something about creating the possibility of a future connection to that, but I don't know. That's not a public right-of-way, so we don't know what that might entail, I guess. So, or if there's a future plan for that road or something.
There's not a future plan, but I think it appeared to be public. So I couldn't find a plat, but it appeared to be a public right of way. And so we would want to see at least a minimum of a pedestrian connection to support Thrive and breaking down large blocks and providing pedestrian access, especially to the bus stops. I forget the name of the road, but getting people out to Emery Grove Road.
Okay.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
I don't think we have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody's time, effort. Appreciated.
All
As
right, thank
always.
you.
All right. Take care.